Daisy's childhood friend was getting married. She was afraid he was marrying the wrong person, so she spent all night digging up everything she could on the woman. After a lot of digging, she finally found something. His fiancée had written over 30 love letters to someone else back in school. Pleased with herself, Daisy got ready to go convince her friend to call off the wedding. Watching her, I finally let go of the last of my hope and broke up with her. A few days later, there was a knock on my door. A woman stood outside, a half-smile on her face. "You're single now, and I happen to need a fiancé. How about we team up and get married?" I'd spent the entire night thinking about breaking up with Daisy. I had come over specifically to celebrate our 3-year anniversary. I'd baked a cake at home, spent several months' salary on a watch for her, and after taking the subway for more than a dozen stops and walking for another half hour, I was bursting with excitement to surprise her. But when the door to the villa opened, I was met with Daisy's incredibly sullen face. A cigarette was still between her fingers, her gaze was dark, and she couldn't even be bothered to smile. She seemed startled to see me. Then she suddenly reached out and yanked me toward her. It was so abrupt that I didn't have time to react. The things in my hands crashed to the floor with a loud bang. She didn't seem to care in the slightest. She stubbed out her cigarette, wrapped one arm around my waist, and cupped the back of my neck with her other hand, kissing me with a desperate urgency. She had never been like this before. She grew up in an exclusive neighborhood, and while she had the air of a spoiled rich girl, she was always well-mannered and composed. She never did anything to make people uncomfortable, especially not with me. We went to the same university. She said it was love at first sight at the freshman orientation, and then she relentlessly pursued me for 2 years. In the beginning, I refused to say yes. I felt that our family backgrounds were worlds apart, and even if we forced it, it would never end well. I spent my weekends studying in the library. By then, she had already started learning the ropes of her family's company and was staying up late every night. She was barely getting enough sleep, but she'd still force herself to wake up early to buy me breakfast and save me a seat. Once I started studying, she would just nap at the table next to me. I repeatedly rejected these gestures, but it was like water off a duck's back. Then one time, she forgot to set her alarm. By the time she woke up, it was over an hour later than usual. She rushed to the library and found me. For the first time ever, I wasn't reading. I was waiting for her. I pulled out a piece of paper and laid it in front of her, gesturing for her to read it. On it, I had listed all the potential difficulties we would face if we got together. I laid out all the pros and cons, trying to make her see reason and give up. After she finished reading, she gave me a complicated look. I gave her a calm smile and wrote another sentence on the paper. "See? We're just not meant to be." She was silent for a long time, then gave me a deep, meaningful look before carefully folding the paper and taking it with her. I thought she had finally given up. But the next day, she showed up with documents detailing all her assets and personal information and gave me a soft smile. "My parents are very open-minded. They would never stand in our way. I promise to be completely honest and sincere with you. None of the things on that list will ever happen. Just trust me this once. Okay?" I was stunned for a long time, and finally just looked at her, completely baffled. I didn't understand how someone could be so persistent, just as I didn't understand now why she was suddenly so dejected, as if she had lost something incredibly important. That must be why she was clinging to me so desperately, trying to soothe her anxiety. As she kissed me, her hands slid under the hem of my shirt. I snapped back to reality and pushed her away. "What the hell are you doing?" Only then did Daisy seem to calm down a little. Her breathing was still heavy, but she squeezed her eyes shut before leaning back against the entryway wall. "I'm sorry," she said. I could see she was in a bad mood, so I didn't press the issue. I bent down to pick up the things on the floor. Unfortunately, the cake was completely ruined. I picked up the box with the watch inside, intending to put it on the living room table. But I saw it was covered in documents. I glanced at them and realized they were a biography of a woman named Isabel White. It took me a long, hard moment to remember that this was the fiancé of Daisy's childhood friend. Her friend's name was Kevin, and he had grown up with Daisy in the same wealthy neighborhood. Back when the other socialites were still just partying and fooling around, he was already handsome and well-built, as proud as a prince. He had always looked down on spoiled rich girls like Daisy, who did nothing all day and just planned to live off their family's fortune. But Daisy never cared what other people thought of her. She was fearless and did whatever she wanted. The more Kevin acted like that, the more she thought the kid had character and wanted to protect him. That protection lasted for over a decade. Daisy slowly started to get her act together, and only then did Kevin's opinion of her begin to change. As they got older, people who knew their history would sometimes tease them about being childhood sweethearts. Of course, I had hardly ever met this childhood friend. This was all stuff I'd heard from other people. Daisy rarely mentioned him around me. Ever since she started dating me, she had given me all her tolerance and time and had stopped getting involved in Kevin's life. So, looking at these papers on the table, I was a bit surprised. I didn't understand why Daisy would investigate Kevin's fiancée in such exhaustive detail, digging up everything from the schools she attended to the class officer positions she held. What was surprising, though, was that Isabel White had apparently never been in a relationship. Daisy noticed what I was looking at, walked over, and snatched the papers from my hand, her voice tinged with anger. "Don't look at that," I asked. "Why are you investigating her?" Daisy's brow furrowed. "She's Kevin's future wife. I have to vet her for him." I almost laughed in her face. This wasn't vetting. It was more like she was desperate to dig up some hidden secret. The thought struck me and I suddenly understood. I looked up at Daisy. She seems pretty outstanding. Healthy, strong background, young, and successful with no romantic baggage. Daisy's eyes fixed on me, and her expression suddenly turned cold. She asked, "Weren't you two in the same high school? Have you heard anything about her? Good or bad, I don't care." That phrasing was very telling, I thought. More than the good, she wanted to hear the bad. Otherwise, the mountain of information on the table would have been more than enough for her. I let out a laugh. I didn't really know her back then. Why don't you find someone who did? You might actually dig something up. I wasn't lying. Back then, I kept to myself and my studies. I had vaguely heard of Isabel White, knew she was the golden girl, always first in our year, and the secret crush of half the guys in school. Other than that, I knew nothing. Her eyes suddenly lit up. She eagerly grabbed her phone and went into the other room. The door slammed shut in my face. After a moment, as if she'd suddenly remembered I was still there, she opened the door and said, "Leo, why don't you go rest upstairs for a bit? Wait for me, okay?" I nodded. Okay. After that, she was on the phone in her room the whole time. I sat outside, watching the hands of the wall clock tick by, thinking about everything that had happened since we got together. I thought about the faint smile on her lips whenever she mentioned Kevin. I thought about her crestfallen expression this morning when the news broke that the White and he families were planning a merger through marriage. Perhaps, after more than 20 years of being by his side, she had fallen in love with her childhood friend. She was just so oblivious that she only realized her own feelings when he was about to get married. So where does that leave me? Even now, I had to admit that she had been very good to me these past few years. So good that my friends often asked if I had some dirt on her to make her so obedient. She had done so many things for me, many of them childish and laughable. The time that moved me the most was during one summer break when I went to my grandma's place in the countryside. She somehow found out and followed me there. There weren't any hotels where we were, and the conditions weren't great. Growing up in the lap of luxury, she had probably never been to a place like that. But she gritted her teeth and stayed for over 2 weeks, showing up at my grandma's every day, asking about this and that, even lifting her dress to help plant vegetables and feed the chickens. Watching her from a distance, for the first time, I genuinely smiled at her. "Aren't you bored?" A look of something like astonishment crossed her face, and she stammered, "And not bored." That night, a fire broke out at our neighbor's house and spread to ours. When she heard about it from her hotel, she ran over without even grabbing a coat. The fire was still raging when she arrived, and it was chaos. She just started screaming my name and rushing into the flames. If I hadn't happened to see her and call out, I doubt she would have gotten out of there unscathed. Later, as we drove back to Boston together, I looked at her tired face and took the initiative. I can give you a chance. And we've been together ever since. We even met each other's parents not long ago. Probably because she had been laying the groundwork for a long time, Daisy's family really liked me. We were even close to talking about marriage. I really did love her and wanted to build a life with her. But now, it seemed her feelings for me weren't what I thought they were. After a long hesitation, I walked to the closed door. Daisy probably thought I had gone to bed and, afraid of missing something, had put her call on speaker. A woman's voice was on the other end. Isabel the whiz kid. I don't think she ever got into any trouble. Never heard any gossip about her and any guys either. Daisy had already made many similar calls. Her voice was a bit hoarse by now. She grunted in agreement, then casually asked, "So she never liked anyone?" "Don't think so, never heard anything." "Wait, actually, I think there was someone." Daisy's voice suddenly became excited. "Who?" "I really don't know who. Back then, Isabel wrote the guy over 30 love letters, but he apparently rejected them all and sent them back. I happened to be passing by and saw her tearing them up and throwing them in the trash. The look in her eyes was terrifying. I was curious, so I took a peek, and they looked like love letters. At the time, I even gossiped with my friends, wondering what kind of god could make someone like Isabel fall that hard. Half the guys in our school had a crush on her. If that story got out, there would have been a lot of broken hearts. Hearing this, Daisy let out a soft laugh. "I see." The moon hung heavy in the sky. Hearing her response, I fought back the sour feeling in my chest and curled my lips into a self-mocking smile. For someone like Isabel White to write over 30 love letters, it wasn't hard to imagine that the man was still the unattainable love of her life. Daisy's selfish motive was crystal clear. If she truly wanted the childhood friend she grew up with to find a good partner, she would have stopped her investigation after finding Isabel's clean record. She should have even been happy, but she wasn't. I had my own bedroom at Daisy's place. It was late, and getting a cab in this area was difficult. I wasn't going to make things harder on myself, so I just went upstairs. The next morning, when I woke up, Daisy was already dressed and ready to go out. She was glowing with none of last night's dejection. She even asked me casually, "How did you sleep?" "Fine," I said. She walked over, put her hands on my shoulders, and guided me toward the dining table, her voice placating. "I made you breakfast. See? It's all your favorites." Indeed, the table was laden with food. It looked like she hadn't slept at all. I asked, "Where are you going?" She didn't hide it. "To the He family's house, for something. You wait here for me. I had someone book a private room for us. When I get back, I put down my spoon. I finished her sentence for her. "We should break up." Daisy frowned, seemingly not processing what I just said. After a moment, she let out a scoff. "Leo, don't be ridiculous. You know how hard it was for us to get to this point." Without giving me another chance to speak, she turned and left. She stopped at the door, her hand on the knob, leaving me with only her back. Her voice was low. "I don't want to hear that again. Not even as a joke. Wait for me." I didn't answer her. A few moments later, I heard a car engine start outside. I sat there for a while, my mind a complete blank. It felt like I wasn't thinking about anything. Yet at the same time, I was thinking about so much that my head was starting to ache. Without further hesitation, I finished my breakfast and left. Before I left, I sent her a message on WhatsApp. "You should know me by now. I don't joke about things like this. It's over. I'm serious." I watched the typing bubble appear and disappear over and over. About 10 minutes later, a message finally came through. "I don't agree." I didn't reply. A breakup isn't like getting together. It doesn't require both parties to agree. When one person doesn't want it anymore, the relationship is over. To be honest, I never imagined that in just one day, Daisy and I would end up like this. Before this, everyone around us just assumed we would get married one day. I didn't reply to her message, and Daisy didn't send another one. In the past, that would have been absolutely impossible. I forced myself not to think about it and focus on my work. A little while later, a commotion broke out in the office. Someone said they saw the head of White Corp downstairs. Isn't her assistant supposed to be handling the partnership talks today? Why did she come in person? I heard it was a last-minute change of plans. Quick, how's my makeup? Do I look handsome? What's the use of being handsome? I hear she has a fiancé, and it's a high society marriage between two powerful families. I instantly knew they were talking about Isabel White. I had never met her, but maybe because of what happened yesterday, I felt a pang of guilt. When I heard her name, if it weren't for my offhand comment, Daisy might not have thought to call around and would never have brought this up with Kevin's family. Lost in thought, I sighed. I got up to get some water. After a few steps, a colleague started talking to me, and I turned my head to reply. Not watching where I was going, I nearly tripped over a chair. A jolt of panic shot through me, but in the next second, a hand gently steadied my waist, and my wrist was caught in a firm grip. I looked up and met a pair of deep, dark eyes. She looked at me, her eyes narrowing slightly. Her breath hitched, and the pressure on my wrist tightened for a moment. The person next to me quickly spoke up. "Ms. White, I'm so sorry. This is one of our employees, he's a bit clumsy." I quickly pulled away from her embrace. "Ms. White." This was Isabel White. Isabel glanced at me, her expression neutral. "It's fine." I quickly stepped aside. Isabel and her entourage walked past me. Just as I was about to breathe a sigh of relief, she suddenly stopped and glanced back. Her gaze swept over me lightly before she turned away without a trace of emotion and entered the conference room. Not long after I sat down, I saw a social media alert. All the posts about the impending marriage between the White and He families had suddenly been deleted. White Corp also issued a statement, calling the matter a rumor. They urged netizens to stop spreading it. Honestly, I had no idea what the relationship between Isabel and Kevin was like. Before yesterday, I hadn't even heard that Kevin was dating anyone. But to get to the point of marriage, Kevin must have had some feelings for Isabel. He had high standards and didn't seem like the type to settle. Holding my phone, I involuntarily swiped to my chat with Daisy. She had left the house full of excitement, rushed over to Kevin's, and personally sabotaged his engagement. She must be breathing a huge sigh of relief right now. I suddenly wondered if she was more excited at this moment than when I first agreed to be her boyfriend. Before long, it was lunchtime. The conference room door was still closed. I went to grab a bite, and by the time I got back, I heard that Isabel had already left. I got a call from Daisy when I was leaving work. Her tone was casual, tinged with a smile, just like any other day. "How much longer? I'm downstairs at your office." For the past few years, she had gone far out of her way to pick me up every single day. Rain or shine, she never missed a day. In the beginning, I thought it was pointless. My apartment was close to the office, a half-hour walk at most. There was no need for her to go to all that trouble just to drive me home and then drive all the way back herself. But when I told her this, she just raised an eyebrow and drawled back. "Well, then, how about I move in with you?" "Can't help it. If I don't see you for a day, I start to get an itch." Back then, she wanted me under her nose every second of the day. That's why I never once doubted her feelings for me. Thinking of this, my grip on the phone tightened. I told her I made myself perfectly clear this morning. "We're not boyfriend and girlfriend anymore. You should go home. I don't need you to pick me up." She fell silent. I heard the click of a lighter on her end. After a long moment, her voice came through, a little lazy. "And I told you I don't agree. As long as I don't agree, we haven't broken up. Come down. Let's talk this out face to face. What kind of breakup is a text message?" I thought for a moment. Fine. We had been together for 3 years. Some things did need to be said clearly. A part of me wanted to believe this was all just a misunderstanding. But after her bizarre behavior last night, I couldn't lie to myself. When I got downstairs, I didn't see Daisy, but I did see Isabel. She was standing across the street, talking on the phone. When I saw her, it was as if she sensed it, and she suddenly looked up. I was a little curious. Didn't she leave hours ago? Why was she still here? The thought passed in a flash. The next moment, I saw Daisy's car and paid no more attention to Isabel. Daisy was leaning against her car, looking at her phone. Her posture relaxed as she replied to a message. I don't know what the other person said, but she arched an eyebrow and smiled faintly. She was so absorbed that she didn't even notice me walk right up to her. I happened to glance at her phone screen. The person she was chatting with was none other than Kevin. My throat suddenly felt tight. Only then did Daisy look up and see me. She instinctively put her phone away, stood up straight, and opened the passenger door for me. You're here. Get in. I stood my ground, refusing to move. She had been in a pretty good mood, but seeing me now, the smile on her face slowly faded. I said, "Didn't you want to talk this out in person? Let's do it right here." She frowned. "Fine. You want to break up with me because I was investigating Isabel White yesterday? But that doesn't mean anything." Looking at Daisy, I suddenly felt like I didn't know her anymore. I took a deep breath. All right, then just answer one question for me. Kevin's engagement is off. Are you happy? Daisy's body froze instantly. How to describe her expression at that moment? It was a mix of conflict, confusion, and then a dawning realization. When it comes to relationships, I've always been a pretty rational person. Even now, I somehow had the composure to analyze Daisy's feelings for her. I've met a lot of your friends. When they talk about Kevin, they all tell me how you've always protected him, that his business is your business. Before they met me, they all thought you were actually in love with him. Otherwise, who could be that good to someone for decades on end? You've been rebellious since you were a kid, and this was no exception. The more people said that, the more you felt you two shouldn't be together. Am I right? That's why she was so slow to realize her own feelings. Women, I thought, they only realize what they've lost when it's gone. After I finished, I expected Daisy to finally understand her own heart and end things with me gracefully. But that didn't happen. Her eyes fell on me, a self-mocking, complicated look on her face. She said, "Leo, do you even have a heart? Something like this happens, and you don't fight, you don't get mad, you even have the nerve to analyze things for me. Should I be thanking you? My boyfriend." I was taken aback. She let out a sharp laugh. "You want to break up, right? Don't regret it." I nodded. She forced a smile, but in the end, she said nothing more and left. I started walking toward the subway station. Before I left, I subconsciously glanced back at where I'd seen Isabel. She was gone. By the time I got home, news of my breakup with Daisy had spread everywhere. It all started with one of her friends posting on social media celebrating her own return to single life. Someone commented below, mentioning Daisy and saying that among their group, Daisy and her boyfriend had the most stable relationship, making everyone else envious. They all knew how much effort Daisy had put into winning me over. They often teased her about it. They'd say that for a girl who seemed to have men falling at her feet, Miss Daisy sure took 2 whole years to finally land her handsome man. In the past, seeing a comment like that, she would have immediately replied, of course, get ready for the wedding invitations. But this time, she took a long time to reply, and it was just 2 words. We broke up. After that post, it wasn't long before a mutual friend called me. What happened? You and Daisy broke up? This was my college roommate. He had watched Daisy and me get together and had later started dating one of Daisy's friends because of me. Their relationship was going well. So I didn't hide it from him and briefly explained what had happened. After I finished, my friend hesitated for a moment and asked, "You're throwing away a 3-year relationship over something like this? Isn't that a huge waste? I mean, maybe it's nothing. Maybe she just wanted to pick a better marriage candidate for her childhood friend?" Then he immediately shot down his own theory. "No, that doesn't seem right either. If it wasn't because she liked him, she wouldn't have been so upset just from hearing he was getting married." I agreed. I had already gone over all of this in my head again and again that night. If I hadn't become so certain of this conclusion after repeatedly thinking it through, I wouldn't have taken things this far with Daisy. The breakup was a big deal. That night, Daisy's friends organized a get-together to comfort her. My friend, who was with his girlfriend, got dragged along. A short while later, he sent me a video. In the video, someone asked Daisy, "Are you and Leo really done? You were so into him before. Can you really let him go?" Daisy held her glass of red wine, took a small sip, and then smiled faintly. "What's there to not let go of? It's just that I was too good to him before. I spoiled him. That's why he's so. She trailed off, then slammed her glass down on the table with a sharp crack. After watching the video, my friend sent me 2 more messages. I just heard them saying that when Daisy went to the He family's house, Isabel was there too, to call off the engagement. It was arranged by their parents. She had no idea about it. Daisy was standing up for Kevin and brought up the love letter thing. She asked Isabel if she was doing this to Kevin because she couldn't forget that other guy. And get this, Isabel admitted it right then and there. She said she does still love that guy, and if he didn't have a girlfriend, she would have pursued him long ago. But I have to say, I just looked at her file. This woman is seriously impressive. No wonder Kevin agreed to the engagement. I suddenly found the whole thing absurd. So, Daisy's night of misery and her exhaustive background check on Isabel were completely pointless? Even if she had done nothing, Kevin's wedding would have been called off anyway. The next day, Daisy's family found out about the breakup. Naturally, my own parents couldn't be kept in the dark either. My parents had always been worried that I'd be unhappy if I married Daisy. But they couldn't deny that Daisy had gone to great lengths to win them over and was genuinely good to me. So they had eventually relented. Now, that Daisy and I were over, they were actually relieved. And after their relief, they immediately started trying to set me up on blind dates. My mom's rationale was, just go meet her. If it doesn't work out, you can just be friends. New scenery and new people will help you get over your last relationship. They were so insistent that I had no choice but to go on one. But I must have picked the wrong restaurant. I had barely sat down and exchanged a few words when I saw Isabel walk in from outside. With her was a man, incredibly handsome and always smiling, constantly talking to her. Could this man be her one that got away? She saw me, paused for a beat, then quickly looked away and chose the table next to mine. She sat down to my left. I felt a strange sense of guilt. Even though her engagement with Kevin would have ended up this way without the love letter story, it was still her private life, a painful memory even. And now, not only was it known, but it was being widely gossiped about. Within 2 days, basically everyone in their social circle knew that the notoriously picky heiress of the White Corporation had an unrequited love from her school days. She had even written him 30 love letters and gotten no response. I silently turned my head away, not daring to look at them again. My blind date was extremely talkative. We had only just sat down, and she had already planned out our entire future together. The more I listened, the more awkward I felt. Finally, as she started to veer into even more distant territory, I couldn't hold back any longer and interrupted her. Ms. Davis, let's just call it a day here. I have something else to do, so I'm gonna head out. She finally stopped talking. After she left, I got up and headed outside. I was standing on the curb, about to hail a cab, when someone suddenly grabbed my wrist. The person didn't use much force, just a light, tentative grip. Then, as if afraid of startling me, they quickly let go. I heard her call my name, Leo. I turned around and saw Isabel's face. I had seen her several times, but this was the first time I was seeing her this close. I hesitated for a moment, then asked, "You're talking to me?" She actually knew my name. Isabel nodded, her gaze sweeping over my face, inch by inch. Then she suddenly smiled and handed me her briefcase. "You forgot your bag." I was a bit embarrassed, quickly taking the bag and thanking her. The man who had come in with Isabel was now completely dumbfounded. He looked at me, then cautiously at Isabel. "So, I'll just go now?" Isabel nodded. "Okay." I thought about it for a long while but couldn't figure out how Isabel knew me. She was already looking at me and speaking. "You're Daisy's boyfriend?" I was stunned. "Not anymore. But how did you know?" "If I remember correctly, other than that one time at my office, we've never met." Isabel glanced at me, her eyes full of meaning. She arched an eyebrow. "Is that so?" I nodded. "What else could it be?" Isabel's brow softened, and she answered my question. "I saw you on someone else's social media feed. She posted a photo of you two out together." I understood immediately. Boston is only so big. It's inevitable that social circles would overlap. It wasn't strange that she would see a photo of Daisy and me on someone else's feed. But for some reason, I still felt like something was off. A person like her would actually pay enough attention to remember what someone else's boyfriend looked like. As I was about to leave, Isabel asked for my contact information. I wasn't planning on giving it to her. She probably sensed my hesitation and said slowly, about the love letters, Feeling a bit guilty, I quickly cut her off. Ms. White, let me just scan your code. Okay? I didn't think much of our encounter. The next time I saw Daisy was at a private party. I had a contract with an error that needed to be fixed urgently. I contacted the client and he told me he was at a party, gave me the address and said I could just drop it off. I rushed over, found the client, handed him the file, and on my way out, I saw Daisy. It had only been a few days, but she had lost a lot of weight. The smile was gone from her face, and her playful attitude had been replaced by something that almost looked like a serious business professional. Kevin was standing by her side, his arm linked with hers. They looked very close. Two people were chatting next to me, and they mentioned Daisy. I always thought they looked good together. I can't believe they actually ended up together. I heard from someone in the He family yesterday that they're almost certainly getting engaged. I heard that too. He couldn't land Isabel, and he has to marry someone eventually. Of course, he'd choose someone he knows well and who's good to him. What about her old boyfriend? Didn't she act like she couldn't live without him? Is it just over like that? Yeah. And I heard he was the one who initiated the breakup. If it were me, I'd hold on tight to a girl like Daisy. If you miss this chance, where are you ever going to find someone like her again? I didn't stick around to listen. I started to leave the ballroom. Just as I stepped outside, someone called my name. I looked up and saw Daisy's assistant. He walked over and handed me something. Ms. Wilson said this belongs to you. I took it, opened it, and saw the ring I had once given Daisy. I had made it myself. The day I gave it to her, she was so happy she showed it off for 2 weeks straight, sticking her hand out for everyone to see. I nodded. Okay. Daisy's assistant looked at me hesitantly for a moment before speaking. Ms. Wilson said that if you still want to see her, if you have something to say to her, she's waiting for you on the second floor. I found it a little funny. She was the one who told me not to regret it. Now, she was returning my ring and also trying to get me to meet with her. I shook my head. No thanks. The place was quite remote, so I couldn't get a cab and started walking. But after a short walk, it began to pour. I didn't have an umbrella. I ran for a while but couldn't find any shelter. I was completely soaked and miserable. To make matters worse, I dropped my keys. The light was dim, and I couldn't see where they had fallen, so I crouched down to search. A moment later, a pair of high heels appeared in front of me. I looked up past the hem of a dress and saw Isabel. She was holding an umbrella, looking down at me. You love her that much? I was a bit confused. What did she mean by that? The her she was referring to, was it Daisy? The next second, the woman helped me up, her fingertips brushing my cheek. Her voice was deep. Don't cry. I'll take you home. Then I understood. She must have been heading to the party too, saw me on the way, and, knowing Daisy was there, assumed I was heartbroken, soaking in the rain and crying on the side of the road. I felt wrongly accused and wanted to explain, but looking into Isabel's intensely composed eyes, I couldn't get the words out. She drove me all the way home. I thanked her and was about to get out of the car when she stared into my eyes and asked very seriously, "It's raining right now. It doesn't seem very safe for me to drive home alone." There was nothing technically wrong with what she said, but it just felt a little strange. But in the end, I let her come upstairs. Honestly, we barely knew each other, but for some reason I instinctively felt she was a good person. Maybe it's because, in my mind, anyone who could be hung up on one man for so many years couldn't be a bad person. Once inside, I told Isabel to sit down, then went to my room to shower and change into clean clothes. When I came out, Isabel was gone. I looked around and finally found her in the kitchen. She was tall, and my kitchen wasn't very spacious. Seeing her standing there, wearing my usual apron, was oddly amusing. By the time I walked over, the noodles were ready. She brought them out and said, "Try some." I thanked her sheepishly, took a few bites, then suddenly looked up at her. "You're not what I imagined." Her brow furrowed, and her eyes suddenly darkened a little. How so? I thought for a moment and replied, "You're much more down to earth than I imagined." Isabel smiled, and it was a beautiful smile. After we finished eating, the rain had mostly stopped. I walked Isabel downstairs. When I got back to my apartment, I received a call. It was Daisy using her assistant's phone. She asked, "You won't even see me?" I knew Daisy. When she sent the ring, her real intention probably wasn't to return it. She just wanted me to come back to her. I said, "Since we've already broken up, I don't think seeing each other or talking more will change anything." Daisy scoffed and was about to say more when my doorbell suddenly rang. I got up to open the door. Isabel was standing outside. She was holding a small bag of cold medicine. "I remembered you got caught in the rain and might catch a cold, so I bought you some." I smiled. "Thanks." As I took the bag, I accidentally hit the speaker button on my phone. Daisy's voice suddenly blasted from the receiver, and only then did I remember I hadn't hung up. "Who are you with?" "Leo. I'm talking to you. Who is that woman in your apartment this late at night?" Startled, I quickly hung up the phone. The moment I hung up, she started calling again and again, so I just turned my phone off. Isabel had been standing in the doorway the whole time. I explained I was just on the phone. She nodded softly but didn't leave. Instead, she looked down at me, her eyes bright, and said with a lazy smile, "You're single now, and I happen to need a fiancé. How about we team up and get married?" I stared at her, momentarily stunned. I recognized every word she said, but put together, I couldn't make any sense of them. I looked at Isabel, speechless. She said, "I have a clean record and more than enough assets to support you for a lifetime. How about you consider me?" I stared at her, my brain struggling to catch up. Why would you suddenly think of this? Don't you have someone you're in love with?" She looked straight at me and said, "Leo, think hard. Was that day at your office really the first time we met?" Isabel was a woman of action. From that day on, she began to pursue me. When I went shopping, she would accompany me. This woman, who was usually so refined, would carry my bags and follow me around. Everywhere. I started to realize that she seemed to know me very well. She knew I liked to walk on the right side when I was with someone, knew I had a sweet tooth, and knew I was allergic to mangoes. One time, she came to find me, and I was in the mood for a street food stall at the end of the block, so she went with me. Under the streetlights, she sat across from me, eating her noodles with a slow, deliberate grace. Watching her, I suddenly remembered a similar scene from many years ago. Back then, I loved eating at a small shop near campus. The place wasn't big, but the food was great. For one whole week, every time I went, I would see a group of upperclassmen, a year ahead of me, sitting at a table across from mine. They would curiously ask the girl in the middle, "Izzy, are you possessed or something? What made you suddenly decide to eat here, and for a whole week straight?" I happened to be passing their table at that moment and heard a cool, clear voice reply, "Just wanted to see. What's so good about his noodles?" My thoughts returned to the present. I looked at the woman in front of me. Suddenly, everything became clear. As we were leaving, I suddenly asked her, "I heard you're very good at writing love letters?" Isabel stopped in her tracks and looked at me thoughtfully. "Yes, I've written many, but he wouldn't even look at them." I thought back. In fact, all sorts of love letters used to appear on my desk back then. But I found it all so boring that I never opened them, and just asked someone to help me return them. After a while, no one sent them anymore. So, back then, no matter whose love letter it was, I never saw what was inside. She walked me home. When we got to my building, I was thinking about the love letters and was about to explain things to Isabel when another figure rushed out from the side, yanked me behind her, and, with a clenched fist, lunged toward Isabel. But for some reason, Isabel seemed to freeze, just standing there motionless, letting her come at her. If I hadn't been quick enough to grab Daisy's arm, that punch would have definitely landed on Isabel. Daisy had actually come to see me once during this time. She was still fixated on the voice she had heard on the phone that day and wanted to know who it was. But I had always managed to sidestep the question. But I never expected her to be here tonight and to almost get violent. Daisy's face was pale, her fists clenched tightly. She pointed at Isabel and asked me, "The person with you that day was her, wasn't it? How could you get together with her? Don't you know who she is?" I nodded. "I know." Daisy looked at me in disbelief. "And you still go out with her?" She admitted it to my face. She said she has someone she's in love with. She can't forget him. She even wrote him over 30 love letters. That's the person she truly loves. She's with you, but it's definitely not for real. By the end, she was almost incoherent. She was willing to call off the engagement with the He family for that guy. Who knows how she'll treat you in the future. After she finished, Isabel walked up to me and smiled faintly. She looked at Daisy. "You're right," Daisy sneered, looking at me with a triumphant gleam. "See? She admits it herself. Leo, come here. Come over to my side. I've thought it through. I can't live without you. From now on, as long as we can be together, I'll be the one to take the lead. Okay?" Isabel cut her off. "I do admit it. The person I've always been in love with is Leo. The letters were for him. The person I can't forget is him. In fact, I should thank you, Ms. Wilson, for making this possible." As her words fell, it was as if Daisy had been struck by lightning. She stared at me, unable to utter a single word. She had never imagined things would turn out this way. When she first heard the story, she was just happy. She could use it to convince Kevin to call off his wedding. But at that moment, she never would have guessed that Isabel's love letters were actually for me. Later, I heard that Daisy was depressed at home for a long time. Kevin went to see her a few times, but she couldn't be bothered to talk to him. Kevin had actually started to see her as his next girlfriend, but after this whole fiasco, he was pretty angry and yelled at her. "Daisy, he's just one guy. Is it really worth all this? I was into Isabel and she didn't want to marry me, but even I'm not acting like this. You've been by my side all this time, and I was starting to really like you, but now, I guess it's for the best that I don't." He sighed, disappointed, and then left. After Daisy recovered, she came to see me one more time, but by then, I had already accepted Isabel's confession. She just looked at me and said, "I admit, when I first found out Kevin was getting married, I did see him as very important. It's a complicated feeling. I can't explain it." I just nodded softly. She sighed. "I really do love you. Believe me." I suddenly remembered that sunny afternoon when she had said the same thing to me. "I promised to be completely honest and sincere with you. Just trust me this once. Okay?" I did trust her, but in the end, we still couldn't make it. A couple of days later, I heard that Daisy was planning to expand her family's business abroad and had left Boston. Isabel told me she had known me for a long time. "Remember, when you were a freshman, the school had us give a speech together. Right before going on stage, your speech notes went missing. But you weren't worried at all. I remember thinking, this underclassman has a lot of guts. He doesn't seem to know what fear is. Later, on stage, you didn't have your notes, but you still got through the whole thing without batting an eye. I've been paying attention to you ever since." All these years, she had watched Daisy pursue me, watched us get together, watched us get close to getting engaged. She thought she would never have a chance to be with me. But just when you think all is lost, a new opportunity appears. That morning, after calling off her own engagement, she saw Daisy tenderly comforting Kevin. In that single moment, she suddenly felt like she might have a chance. So she quickly made a decision. She had to meet me. That was what I thought was our first meeting. But she had been waiting for 8 years.